So we're going to get to the meeting. Both Sam and I have commitments elsewhere at 11, and we're going to wrap up by 10:30 sharp. All right?
Good.
If not earlier.
It's in Melville. I was
If
thinking
not
10:30.
So you still will. All right. So let's stand for our pledge. Jim or Justice, who's leaving us? Are you both leaving us? Eustace. All right, give us a start.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's go around the horn and recognize our official quorum.
Frank Trotta.
Alex Carlucci.
Eustace Klimavicius. James Masala.
Nancy Toms.
Christopher Hahn.
Jim Longo.
All right, I'll recognize our quorum, and then Sam will introduce your team, starting with Ernie.
Ernest Baptiste, CEO, University Hospital.
Jen Johnson, VP Human Resources.
Hi, good morning. Rick Etto, VP Student Affairs and Dean of Students.
Richard Reeder, VP for Research.
Nicholas Cabetta, Vice President, Marketing Communications.
Matt Whalen, VP for Strategic Initiatives.
Susan Blum, Chief Counsel.
Melissa Wu, Senior VP for IT.
Kat Byington, Senior Vice President, Finance and Administration.
Judy Grimer, Chief Deputy to the President and Senior Vice President for Government Community Relations.
Good morning, Michael Bernstein, University Provost.
Carol Lundoro, Executive Assistant to the President.
Rachel Kavanaugh, Executive Assistant to the Chief Deputy to the President.
Good morning, Marissa Trachtenberg, Associate Director for Policy, Compliance, and Presidential Initiatives.
Good morning, Kevin Moriarty, Chapter President for Stony Brook UUP West Campus.
Carolyn Kuby, Chapter President for UUP Stony Brook HSC.
Jun Liu, VP for Global Affairs.
Adam Furtman, Director of University Community Standards.
Sean Hilbrun, Director of Athletics.
Andrew Matkosov, undergraduate student.
All right, and of course our tech team that try to make us look good on camera today. And thank you guys. We have an informative agenda today. I'm just going to start off as we always do. We have to approve the minutes from February 11th, 2018. Motion by Frank, seconded by Chris. Any comments, revisions, additions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. The minutes are approved. Chairman's report. Who's this? Is this your last meeting? Are you
I believe
graduating?
So. I am.
Yeah. What are your plans for after graduation?
Not sure yet.
Not sure?
I'm applying to several MBA programs, including here. Stony Brook.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent.
And that's, of course, after the cycling trip.
Yeah.
But I believe I emailed the council. So.
Tell us about that.
Starting June 4th, I fly out to San Francisco, where I'm going to be cycling with the Ability Experience across country. So for 7 weeks, roughly almost 4,000 miles, we're going to be about 30 brothers of Pi Kappa Phi fraternity. We're going to be cycling to DC. So August 10th, we get back in DC, and along the way, we stop at local disability organizations.
Oh, that's amazing. That's terrific, and so indicative of the caliber of the students that you have here who also know the value of giving back. And so let's wish you as well. And thank you. Jim, you're going to be with us?
Yeah, I'll be sticking around in some capacity. Absolutely.
Very good. Well, we're always happy to have you on our meetings.
Absolutely.
All right. We're also very happy to have Michael with us here. I think this is also his last meeting. Sam, is that right? Yeah?
One never knows, but
One
yeah.
never knows. Well,
Based on timing, yes.
better sometime, yes, because we don't meet again until about October. Yeah, so with that, Michael, I want to thank you for the great job you did as provost and wish you and your family the best. So thank you. And, two other things, I don't know how many people made it. It was really exciting. We had the governor here a couple of weeks ago to announce budget highlights from this year. And, man, he's definitely spoke very highly of Stony Brook and has totally bought into the whole research corridor effort that we're trying to create here on Long Island, and mentioned that in Stony Brook and the investments the state has been making here for several times. So it was really exciting to have him here. And just one other bit of news, and we just did this Friday, and it sort of relates to Stony Brook because Stony Brook is the manager of Brookhaven National Lab. And we had a presentation from Dune Gibbs on a really exciting project that BNL is competing for in terms of a multi-billion-dollar initiative with the Department of Energy. We're competing with the state of Virginia and the Jefferson Labs, and it could be really exciting for our region. They're under some directives from DOE not to engage in a full-scale public campaign. They don't want the two states and the two labs publicly competing against each other. But we are going to be advocating in Albany to show a New York State commitment to the project, and we'll be doing something on Long Island as well. It would be great for Long Island, it'd be great for Stony Brook, and really exciting. And by the time we meet in October, it might be something that, at that point, Dune could come in, or maybe Sam in his place could make a more detailed presentation about the specifics of it. So very exciting. And with that, I'll hand it over to Sam for his president's report.
Good, thank you, Kevin, and thank you and the Long Island Association, obviously, for your support of that important project. So I'm going to go ahead and give my report, and you have a copy of it in front of you. And then I'm going to actually co-opt Kathy's budget presentation. So I'm going to actually take it over and fold it into my report. So that'll actually save us some time in getting done at 10:30, maybe. Or maybe it'll take longer if I do. But I'm going to do that as well. So let's begin with some exciting news, and that was the Stars of Stony Brook Gala, which we had on April 10th. And it was an incredible night, and I appreciate everyone who was there and those who contributed to it. We honored Marilyn Simons, of course, class of 74 and PhD in 84 at Chelsea Piers, and we had a crowd of 800, so it was one of the most well-attended that we've ever had. And it was a fantastic evening, but I guess what was most exciting was we had a record-breaking fundraising success. So we raised more than $28.2 million, at least officially, from that. That included a $25 million commitment from Maryland to our Department of Economics to help build it into a world-class department, which is really spectacular, and I think it's been very rare across the country to have a gift of that magnitude to a single non-science department. And so, although economists might criticize me for saying science, but the dismal science, right? But at any rate, the dismal science. But it was a fantastic contribution, and I think it's really going to make a difference. And it's really to create a center to work on areas around social justice and really bring our economics department probably to a higher level around the country in terms of its impact on real-world issues. So it would be a Center for Applied Economics and Public Policy at the university. And then, very importantly, we raised $3.2 million for student scholarships, which again is spectacular. Again, many people helped do that. So that was really exciting, and again, we look forward to getting that implemented. We also had our first Giving Day, a 24-hour online fundraising drive that encouraged our community to support the university's remarkable students. And Dexter can't be here today, but he and his team helped organize it. And we raised more than $170,000 with more than 2,050 donors answering the call to give money to various causes. And we really exceeded the goal, which had been to raise $100,000 from 1,000 donors. So this is a chance, I think, hopefully to draw in people who might not give otherwise to the university, who may not have been engaged already by Dexter and the advancement team, but to get them a sense of being committed to the university. And of course, most of the success was right here on campus. So again, I want to thank faculty and staff on campus, because they really did most of the giving. It was really internal on the staff, so I really appreciate it. A couple of sad notes, and one is, since our last meeting, the interim dean of the School of Health Technology Management, Carlos Vidal, died suddenly. Carlos was a two-time Stony Brook alum. He had received his bachelor's degree in social welfare in '76, his master's also in Stony Brook University, and doctoral and PhD degrees from Fordham, specializing in child welfare research. And he joined the faculty at Stony Brook in 1978, and so he had been a faculty member for a very, very long time, rose through the ranks, and eventually was appointed again by Ken as interim dean for health technology and management. He's a significant loss to Stony Brook University. I had a chance to go to his services, and the turnout from the community as well as from Stony Brook University was extraordinary. This is a man who really reached out to a number of people and had a positive impact in a number of different ways. So it's a significant loss both to our institution and the region. And then another person who I think everyone knew around Stony Brook, and we had a chance to honor, is Erwin Staller. And Erwin passed away, I don't remember the exact date, but at the age of 8, I believe. He's 98 years old. Irwin was a visionary philanthropist, one of Long Island's most admired commercial real estate entrepreneurs, and an extraordinary and loyal friend to Stony Brook. And it was really the gift from Irwin and Freddie Stoller, the gift of $1.7 million. It was the first 7-figure gift to Stony Brook University and to the Stoller Center. And it really got the Stoller Center launched as an art center on Long Island. And I think we all take it for granted now that we have this amazing fine arts center on the island. But I think it was Irwin who, his vision really made that possible. It's his vision and determination that really allowed that to succeed. And over the years, the Stoller family has continued to be engaged with this and made many, many contributions. And has given not just of their time, their treasure, but their time as well. As you know, Carrie serves on the board of trustees, city board of trustees. So the family as a whole has been very engaged with Stony Brook. So we will really miss Irwin. At one time, he held the record for the oldest person ever to scuba dive in the Guinness Book of World Records. He went scuba diving in 94 or something, so set the record there. So that was amazing. Irwin was very proud of that. One of the things he was most proud of. And for those of you who had a chance to get to know him, he was a remarkable man. Very persuasive. So he was a very nice man, but very persuasive man too. And I think many people, in the family and others felt Irwin's, regards for Stony Brook and encouraging them to contribute. And I think he did a very good job of that. So as I said, we will miss Irwin. We named the street in front of the hotel, Irwin P. Stoller Way. That's because Irwin really was instrumental in getting the hotel built at Stony Brook. So he was the one who really led that charge, and one of the things we were able to get done after I arrived with a lot of help from a lot of people was building that hotel, which has become a great benefit to the university. But Irwin, again, was a visionary that tried to get that done. So we'll remember Irwin fondly, and when and now hopefully on Google, when you go to the hotel, it'll say Irwin P. Stoller Way for how you get there. So we had a great event, and Jim was there, and I was so pleased he was, where we celebrated America's 100 best hospitals. So Stony Brook was picked by Health Grades, which is an independent organization, as one of the 100 best hospitals in the United States. They review more than 4,500 hospitals when they make that determination. They make it purely based on data that the government collects, so it's done basically on mortality studies, basically more than anything else. And so Stony Brook ended up in the 98th percentile of center, top 2% of hospitals around the country. We're really proud. The areas where we did well, they don't let you publicize all the areas you did well. You only get to pick 3 areas that you can publicize where we did well. But the 3 we chose were outcomes from cardiovascular intervention, so this is catheterizations and so on, cardiology, which would be heart failure, where we're very good, and then stroke, where we've really made a huge difference. So we're really rated in the top 2% again in all 3 of those categories. And as you may know, while it's fallen over the past few years, heart disease is still the #1 killer of individuals. Stroke has fallen to about 5th or 6th on the list, I believe. But those 2 are very important. And again, so part of what we're doing, I think, to help healthcare on Long Island is taking a lead in fighting those very dangerous diseases as well. Of course, expanding our work on cancer. So we're really proud of that, and it was great to have the team members come up. And Jim, you wanted to?
Yeah, I thought it was an extraordinary presentation, and what was most remarkable to me is that the stroke center started how long ago? Like relative progress made.
Yeah.
How long did it?
I don't remember the exact.
But it was like 10 years or something, a very short time.
I was going to say 98, but so, but
and
or 2008.
Yeah. And at my age, I think of these things. I don't plan on having a stroke, but if I were to have one, I know where to come.
Yeah.
It was really a terrific presentation.
It was very exciting. And in terms of stroke, you may have seen the news that we now have a stroke ambulance working, which actually has a CT scanner within the ambulance, and enables us then, if someone's having symptoms of a stroke, the EMTs driving that ambulance can go to their place, bring them into the ambulance in their driveway, do a CT scan, and figure out whether it's what we call an embolic stroke or thrombotic stroke, where it's basically something blocking the vessel that you need to get rid of that blockage to save their brain, or whether it's a hemorrhagic stroke, in which case they bled in the brain. If it's an embolic stroke, then you want to get rid of that, and you can do that by giving them a blood thinner. And the faster you give them the blood thinner, the more chance they have of having no impact from the stroke and no residual from the stroke. So it's really important you make that determination. In the past, you had to get people to the hospital before you could make that determination, because if you give them a blood thinner and they've had a bleed in their brain, then that will make things much worse and can be fatal. So it's really important to be able to tell. So now we have an ambulance that actually lets us tell right away, and then the EMTs can actually administer the blood thinning agents to those. And we've already saved, I think, someone with one already. We've had our first patient who was done, and they found a thrombotic, what looked like a thrombotic, no hemorrhage, so they could rule out a hemorrhage and were able to go ahead and treat them. So it's very exciting. First one's in order. We're getting another one that's going to be as well. And depending on how successful this program is, we may do a third. It's expensive. These ambulances are very expensive, you might imagine, with the CT in place. You need good telemedicine to make it work, so you have to have people at the other end who can read the scans quickly and make sure they're being read correctly. But it's very exciting for the region. And again, part of our good.
It was a remarkable progress in a short time. That was what was emphasized at the presentation.
Yeah, interesting. Just curious, Dan.
Yeah.
If you think somebody at your family or a place of business is having a stroke, if you call 911, if the local fire department, local ambulance company comes, do they then know to contact Stony Brook, or can
they're trying to train?
Just call up the Stony Brook number.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the specifics of how that's being implemented. They are training all the EMTs in the area to be aware of the stroke ambulance and the dispatchers essentially to be aware of the stroke ambulance. But what the exact area that's being covered is, because right now the ambulance is basically parked in an area that allows it to cover a geographic area, and what areas are actually served by it, I don't know. So it's not all of Long Island. So there's areas right now where there's not going to be able to get there in time, and you're better off picking up somebody and taking them to the nearest hospital than you are using the stroke ambulance, right? So if it's a 5-minute distance, you're better off just taking them quickly to the hospital. On the other hand, if you're out of the East End, for example, where there's much maybe further away distances, then having one in that kind of area makes sense.
Why not just give them a blood thinner anyway? Would that be harmful?
Because if they're having a hemorrhage in their brain, that makes it much worse.
Makes it worse.
So
Got it.
much worse. And so,
Got it.
and there's a significant number that do have a hemorrhagic association. So it's not a small number. If it was vanishingly small, you could say, go ahead and take the chance.
Right.
But it's a significant number to have it. So it just makes it worse if you do that.
Very good.
So more good news. I just wanted to call your attention on page 4 that Stony Brook was ranked the 3rd best university in the nation by Ladders. And Ladders is a job and search organization that ranks, and it's taken to ranking higher education institutions by calculating a number of ranking factors and then factoring in the cost of education and then how much one earns after one graduates as well. So Stony Brook was first in New York State, so we beat out Columbia and Cornell and all those places, and 3rd nationwide behind Princeton and UC Berkeley. And this is a quote from Ladders, when you factor in costs, Stony Brook topples Columbia by a huge amount, with close to $50,000 in state tuition savings annually, to be precise. Stony Brook University also boasts a great track record when it comes to job prospects, career earnings, and competitiveness. So I couldn't have written the script better myself. It was outstanding, and again, very proud of the team and what we do to achieve this kind of ranking. And then Times Higher Education Ranking is a very large ranking of universities from around the world, tens of thousands. But they developed a new set of rankings based on the impact a university has. And so how sustainable are you? How are you approaching issues around income mobility, socioeconomic mobility? And so Stony Brook ended up being number 78 in the world on this ranking, which is, I think, impressive. And our top were in reduced inequalities, where we ranked number 8, gender equality, where we ranked 44, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, where we ranked 55, and then quality education 69, and climate action 93. So again, I think all the things that we care about, our students care about, we rank highly, and again, proud of that. So I want to run through very quickly, go down to the Discovery Prize. This is something sponsored by the Stony Brook Foundation. Every other year, we award a $200,000 prize to an outstanding young researcher at Stony Brook, someone who's put together a project that really crosses, that really is innovative. That's probably too innovative to get funding from NIH or NSF or DOE or the other funders, because there's too much of a risk that the project won't work, so they don't want to fund it because they're afraid to fund things that may fail. But you have to have things that may fail if you're going to pursue basic research and discoveries. And so Eel Meming Park was the winner. He's an assistant professor in the Department of Neurobiology and Behavior in the College of Arts and Sciences in the Renaissance School of Medicine at Stony Brook University. And he had a really neat brain, which is basically, really neat project rather, which is basically trying to map the brain of unconscious people. So the idea is that we don't understand why people get into prolonged states of unconsciousness. Why don't they wake up from prolonged states of unconsciousness? What is it that keeps them trapped in this state? Why don't they recover even after their traumatic injury and long after? Why do they stay in this state? So he's trying to understand it by using very sophisticated brain mapping techniques, neurostimulation techniques, to take a look at the brain and try and map which areas are turned off in those areas, which areas may be turned on that may be suppressing consciousness, and really compare the brains of unconscious people with conscious people to understand kind of the people who do wake up, or you can even look at them with people in sleeping states, which mirror unconsciousness to some degree. Anyway, it's an incredibly exciting project, and one that I think could really be very relevant to health around the country. Favorite day, Friday, May 24th, 11 a.m. Will be our convocation. Our 59th convocation will be taking place that day. Doctoral graduation hooding ceremony is scheduled for Thursday, May 23rd at 1 p.m. 9 with federal credit. The main ceremony, of course, will take place in the Val Stadium. Keep your fingers crossed for good weather. We'll have a great lineup of honorary degree recipients. Alan Alda, of course, I think needs no introduction to this audience, so I won't do it. But the other person receiving the award at the main ceremony is Brook. She's a civil rights activist who really is responsible for starting the Me Too movement. So that's a movement that's had an extraordinary impact on our country. And she's, I think, an inspirational leader, and we really look forward to hearing from both she and Alan Alda. And then at the doctoral ceremony, Greg Marshall is known around the world as a leading animal conservationist. He's a Stony Brook alum. And he developed the critter cam, which is one of the ways in which we're able to actually look at animals in the wild by attaching small cameras to them and study essentially what's going on in animals on the wild. He invented that technology, and his films are famous. We had a great meeting when Clarence Jones, Dr. Clarence Jones, who's a civil rights luminary, joined us. He was one of the people who was involved in writing the Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. He was involved with Goodman in early civil rights protests, and he actually was one of the people who helped negotiate the settlement with Selma, Alabama, after the civil disobedience strikes led by Martin Luther King at the Southern Leadership Conference were actually disrupting the city. They negotiated a settlement that essentially ended segregation in that city. So it was a great conversation for those of you who were there, and really learning about how he helped craft that speech, learning about how he was involved in the Attica dispute with Rockefeller and so on. So we were really at a window into history in that conversation. So it was a great pleasure to do it. And Sean will talk about athletics, so I'll skip that. So let me talk very quickly about budget and where we are in budget. This legislative session is not over yet, but let me tell you about the highlights for us, or the not so highlights, for us. One of the biggest things was, as we've talked about, is the structural deficit we have in our budget, created by the fact that contractual salary increases cost us more essentially than increases when we're getting tuition and fees. We received some help from that from the state, so we're very grateful for that. There's an accelerated payment that's taking place as soon as we received this year that's about $9 million. That'll cover one of the retroactive components that we owed from that contract. So there's a retroactive component of $9 million to cover salary increases in 16, 17 that we owed our workers, our workers. So that helps us pay that. So we'll get $9 million to help pay that, and other city campuses will get whatever their appropriate amount is. And then our hope is that will go again next year, also to cover the second retroactive payment, which is due, which is the 17-18 retroactive payment. So in this contract, the retroactive payment is due for 16, 17, 17, 18. So basically that adds money into our budget, about $9 million. That helps reduce the structural deficit. It is helpful. Doesn't close the gap completely, not at all, but it does make a positive difference. So we're grateful that the governor put that in and the legislature approved it. But we still are looking for ways to close these other gaps and working on it. I think we're making progress, and Kathy would have told you that we're making progress in this area to the extent that we may be able to make some investments. But that progress has come at a cost. That progress in balancing our budget has come at reducing our workforce. And so there's a cost associated with this. So while we are able to meet payroll and kind of balance the budget, we're short of staff in many areas, and we're seeing it in terms of impacts on campus. And so we're trying to figure out now whether we can do some small but important investments to kind of help ameliorate some of those problems and how we can better get in better financial situations. So I would say we're in better shape than we were before, all total budget-wise, talking about our operating budget, but we could be, we still have some challenges ahead because of the contractual salary increases and others. Wanted to talk about the hospital. So we've talked about this many times before. The hospital receives dollars from the state. It receives dollars because years ago the state made the decision to pull fringe medicine support from the hospital employees. So all the other state employees at Stony Brook, the state pays the fringe benefits, but the state pulled them from the hospital employees. And in return, they put together a package that would help pay for that. So because they're employing it, they said, we don't want to pay them in perpetuity, but we'll give you money every year to kind of cover that delta in cost. Well, maybe I shouldn't say not surprisingly, but based on my tenure, not surprisingly, that has disappeared, and every year it's been challenged. It was really cut in half around the time I arrived here, so it went from in the 160 million range, 170 million range to about 80 million. And then over the past few years, it's been zeroed out once. We were able to fight and get it back. The legislature helped us fight and get it back. Now it was zeroed out again this year. And last year we got it, but it was put together by a different kind of form of money, but it was great, we still got it. This year it's zeroed out again. SUNY is supposed to be working on this. We're working on it as well to try and get it restored. For Stony Brook, it's about $35 million. It's a lot of money. I will certainly admit that our budget for the hospital is large because, but we have very small margins on our hospital, so the margins are really small. So yes, it's a $1.5 billion or $1.6 billion enterprise, but the margins are actually very small. So $35 million makes a huge difference in those margins. And so we're continuing to talk to them. There may be things they could do to pick up interest debt for us or other things that would help that might be more palatable for them in terms of the budget. But this is something, again, that we're pushing very hard on. And we can absorb it for a year, maybe, but ultimately it will really have an impact, I think, on us and our services. So we're working very hard on that.
Sam, like the other side of the campus, does the state also take the lead on the negotiation of the salaries of the hospital side?
Yes.
And so then they approve the deal, but then they take away some of the funds to pay for that deal? Is that too simplistic?
No, I mean, I think they would see this as an addition kind of to our budget that they consider discretionary in some sense. I think in their minds they've divorced it from its original function. I think they see it now as a hospital subsidy in quotation marks without remembering what it was designed.
What the original deal was.
What the original deal was. And I think that's, and that's not probably unique to this particular agreement. This is what happens.
That's what happens.
You know far better than I do that deals are made 10 years ago, and then people say, well, why is this money here? And, it's just extra. They forget why it was done, which is a very significant cost was taken over by the hospital and spared from the state at one point in time. But the state said, okay, we'll ameliorate this to some degree, but now they seem to have forgotten about that, and they seem to think we don't need it anymore, which I would say is not true. So we're going to continue to fight on this. We may talk to you. Judy, do you have anything to add in terms of that at all? Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, and then capital. Capital is two things on it. One is there's the overall total for capital for critical maintenance this year for SUNY was $550 million, which is the same as last year. So it's good. I always am happy when they don't cut something, so that's always good. But they changed how it's split. So last year, most of it went directly to the campuses, and SUNY had a pot for kind of special projects. This year, most of it goes to SUNY for the pot for special projects, and less goes to the campus. So we're actually seeing the check that's going to come to us initially is reduced from what it was last year. So it's about less than half of what it was last year. So what that means is we're going to have to advocate with SUNY to get more money. So we still have projects that I think they're going to fund. They're going to spend that money, hopefully. And I think Stony Brook has very deserving projects. But it just means that rather than having 2/3 of it allocated to us to begin with, only 1/3 of it basically is allocated to us to begin with. And then we'll have to compete with other cities to get our share. But I think we'll do a good job competing with other cities, and our projects are compelling. And then we're really working on the engineering building, and Kevin has been really helpful with us on this. And we have $25 million that we've gotten from the Senate, essentially, the legislature. We're going to raise $25 million as well. We've committed, and Dexter's not here today, but you've said this in front of Dexter. We've committed to raise $25 billion, and then there's $50 million we still need essentially from the state to get the building in the full form we want it. And so we're still in negotiations to try and get this. We've had some very good conversations with Long Island 6 about supporting this, and I think they recognize the need. Again, I don't want to take up too much time, but because of our time constraints, but as everyone knows, we've talked about this before, our enrollment in engineering has increased about 70% or so. So there's been a huge growth in the number of students who want engineering and STEM at Stony Brook. And we've really been slow in responding to that in terms of putting more resources into buildings, essentially in engineering. They have a new computer science building, which is great, but they need a new classroom building and a new laboratory building. And so this is what this is designed to do. And of course, it's something that the state, does care about. Is there's an engineering shortage all over the country, but in fact, in Long Island, it's more acute than almost any place in terms of the number of engineers that are graduating. So there is a gap. And I think if we get this building and we do things, we could probably afford to take more engineering students. But that's the challenge right now for that in terms of space to teach, and so that's going to be really important to us. And then I think I'll just say the DREAM Act, we're excited about that. So the statewide DREAM Act, I think that's very important. Makes students without lawful immigration status eligible for Excelsior, TAP, enhanced tuition award, and other things. So we're excited. There's a relatively small number of students, I think, at Stony Brook will be impacted by that. So it's nice to know that those who would have been are going to have access, essentially, to these dollars. And anything else that you think I should add? I think those are most of the highlights. So, yeah.
And Sam, that was good. Is there anything between now and the end of June when the legislature goes out of session, sort of non-budgetary in terms of legislation that we care about that might impact Stony Brook, that we could be helpful on as council?
I mean, there may be some procurement legislation, which we're certainly looking at.
But nothing significant is hanging out there right now.
Beyond the state employees who aren't really state employees because they don't pay off their benefits. If I got that correct.
Yes. Yes.
I think one of the procurement is the one that we're looking at the most.
Modifications that could help us or make our life more complicated?
The modifications in procurement, they would make our life more complicated. They would make our life more most
Well, keep us posted. Again, the role of the council, we should be all advocates for things that could either help us or negatively impact us. So if you want us to be chiming in with anybody, please let us know.
Yeah, and just to wrap up, just on a personal note, this is, I'm wrapping up my 10th year at Stony Brook, and so that'll take place. Yeah, no, I just wanted to say
There isn't
thank
like
you.
a butt there.
I wanted to say just thank you so much to the council, how much I appreciate everyone. I realize very well that this is volunteer. You're appointed by the governor, but I don't think you get any salary. I'm aware of.
I haven't seen it.
And so, I appreciate all the work you've done and the chance to work with you. And particularly appreciate this guy. Thank you. 10 years we've had a chance to work together. It's been
I
very
finished up
rewarding
10
for me.
years in August.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
it came at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great. It's been fun.
Yeah, good. That's it. That's my report.
Well, Sam, very informative, and thank you. Any questions for Sam on any of the topics that we covered? Thank you, and again, thanks to your team for being here as well.
Yep.
Michael, welcome. Good to see you again. Okay, let's see. We got 2 presentations. First, we're going to have an overview of the Office of Global Affairs from Dr. John Liu.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm delighted to be invited to share with you the state of global affairs. Rather than presenting what we do, I'd like to highlight what we have accomplished so you can reflect on what we have been doing to accomplish the goal. So according to Stony Brook University's global strategic goal, we have a goal number 4, that is university will make global impact on what we do in research, education, and student success. So I'm happy to share with you that last year, Stony Brook University has received a distinguished award by leading Association for International Education, that is NAFSA. So we are among the 5 universities in the United States receiving this award, called the Senator Paul Simon Award. It features 4 different areas. One is engagement, one is programmatic efforts, one is a partnership, one is outreach. So among all these 4 criteria, we have streamlined our resources and made a national impact of our university. So basically, we are doing 2-way interaction. One is to help recruit international students and help them succeed. Second is to encourage more students in the United States to go abroad so that we can cultivate this global multicultural atmosphere and success. So in terms of the international student statistics, Stony Brook University is always among the top in all SUNY universities. But as we can see, the last couple of years we have we see a little bit of dip because of the political climate. It is very hard to get visa, and in certain countries it's hard to attract international students. And that's why we made a concerted effort with the leadership of Sam and try to really look at what we can do. So I'd like to share with you some highlights. One of the things we try to do is to look at the statistics of international students. There are 3 top countries: China, India, and Korea. In terms of China, we established the China Center by the end of 2017. Our famous former faculty, C.N. Yan, was the honorary chair. He is a big name in China. So this year, we went from Shanghai to Beijing, to Zhengzhou, to Chengdu, Guangzhou, Nanchang, Hefei, and Suzhou. So we experimented for 3 cities last year, and this year we went to the 2nd tier and 3rd tier cities. So we resulted in having more than 1,800 participants, and many of them are admitted students or potentially admitted students who are still in high school, in order to establish a healthy pipeline. Also, we have attracted lots of parents who care about their own children's study in the United States. And we try different ways of recruiting students. Rather than going straight traditional TOEFL and IELTS track, we also look at the other possibilities, such as principal recommendation to recruit the top talented students already established in their own regions and high schools, and also use the college entrance examination as a benchmark to attract students.
So June, just to step back a little, because everybody may not know the terminology. Classically, the way you would look at these students would be how they perform on a test of English as a foreign language, basically. And then you might ask them to take the SAT or some other test too, right? And so what we've done is say, yes, that's good, but there's actually a Chinese college entrance exam, which is very, very strict and very, very well regulated. And we'll look at the top students of that if they also seem to have good English skills. And then we'll also take a look at recommendations and other things, make it more holistic as it is for our students, and not just rely on the TOEFL and the SAT scores. And so the challenge would be that may allow you to expand your pool. And I'm trying not to take your thing, but this may allow you to expand your pool. But then at the same time, it also may, you have to follow and make sure these students can succeed at Stony Brook if you kind of change the classic benefits. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. We usually admit international students based upon English scores, TOEFL, IBT 80, or IELTS, which is 6.5. But we are restricted in only going that route because many top students are not going through the international schools. They do not take IELTS or TOEFL. They go through the college entrance examination, which is the national entrance examination. So lots of top students are in that route. So we try to accommodate the needs and look at the talent in high schools rather than international route. We did it last year as experiment. 6 other universities in the US followed us. And this year, Cambridge University also followed us. There are more than 23 universities around the world that accept students from China through Gaokao entrance examinations. And this year, we had so many students there. So I'm going to share with you a 3-minute video so you can see the highlights of this session. Oh, okay, the other way.
Welcome to this information session for Stony Brook University. We're on a very beautiful location on Long Island in New York, and we make sure that every student gets the individual attention they need to succeed. So Stony Brook is very engaged in China. We're very involved in a number of initiatives with China, but that's good for you as a student, because that helps us create a network, essentially, of people who've been successful, who you can get to know, and that can make a difference in your career.
在2017年11月份。成立了中国中心，全方位的在中国招更多更好的学生。我们利用暑期班，不光是帮助你学习英文，更重要的是让你融入文化。同时呢，我们给中国学生呢服务作为第一，让我们的学生们感到，尽管离开了父母，但是实习还是我的家。That's just a 3-minute overview of the event. What we did was not only to share information, but also do on-site interview about students' interaction in English. That way is a more reliable benchmark for admitting students who are able to compete and succeed in the universities. So as a result of this session, we have more than 80 more deposits this time than last year. And we also have a steady pipeline to accept students with excellence in academic areas, but slightly lack in language skills. We use intensive English program to help them through summer, so they will be matriculated in fall. So recruit high-quality students is one of the goals, and we feel this is working. When students are in, we try to focus on how we can help students succeed. Last year, we launched a program called Peer Mentoring Program. We had more than 233 freshman international students participate in the program, about 80 senior, junior students serving as mentors. So we established a peer-to-peer interaction, and that works very well. That, as you can see, that about 1,200 conversations, at least 10 conversations with each pair. So we try to help students feel comfortable and with the senior students as their support. And meanwhile, we try to establish some kind of workshops and also work with the hospital to have the new mental health seminars to help students with emotional vulnerability and try to be stable, try to be healthy, and also overcome difficulties with the help. So this way that we are going to look at international students' needs when they leave home and being here by themselves, we try to provide the support. And we also have worked with the community, and we have redesigned the Stony Brook University's host family program. And this time it's organized through our visa immigration office. We work with the community leaders and try to help international students have family experience by participating in some social activities. This way we outreach to the community and the students feel comfortable, and so that way we can help students acclimate themselves more quickly. One of the students we admitted has suffered from cerebral palsy, and he was one of the most successful students this far. So when we interviewed his professors, the professor said he made a difference in class because he was straight A student, and all those other students feel that he can achieve so much, and he will spend 5 hours for what other people do for 1 hour. So this is a great example of student success. Meanwhile, we are looking at the ESL curriculum articulation under the Provost Michael Bernstein's leadership. We really look at this issue, and thanks for Rick chairing this committee. We try to understand international students' background and help them succeed academically. And even though English is not their first language, we try to help them to articulate the curriculum, to help them in particular improving their oral communication skills and written skills. And we have a program called the IEC Intensive English Program to admit students before they are matriculated. And this year we have about 40 students to be matriculated in fall. And in Global Summer Institute, we have another 50 students to be matriculated. Global Summer Institute is another thing we have done over the last few years. We try to provide summer courses to encourage newly admitted students to come here earlier so that they can take advantage of those 6 weeks in order to be acclimated and also improve their English, improve their experience. So when the fall kicks in, they will be more ready according to lots of interviews afterwards. And we arrange a series of lectures in different areas, international leadership, global economies, and American culture and society, and also provide some sightseeing for them to understand the neighborhood, to understand the surroundings. One of the students said that GSI helped me adapt to the American lifestyle quickly and taught me how to handle different problems before I go to the university. I'm ready to be an undergraduate student. And this student, we follow up with her. She has done very well academically. Global Forum is something we try to do to cultivate the atmosphere around campus for domestic students as well as international students to see how we can help students succeed in both ways, for international students to be mingle with domestic students and otherwise focus on intercultural communication skills. We also try to work with the Career Center actively, and we have one staff working in the Career Center to help international students find the jobs and seek OPT opportunities. We also have worked with our campus and tried to offer some classes of conversational skills, especially for staff members who are in advising or in other areas, so they will feel more comfortable advising international students. So that is international students. On the other hand, we focus on study abroad. So over the years, we always reach the top among the SUNY universities as a leader for study abroad programs and the number of students. As you can see, the last few years, Stony Brook University surpassed other research centers in the SUNY system. We have provided 78,000 scholarships to honor those who are willing to study abroad and yet need some financial support. And this is something we feel has a great return of investment. And lots of students chose to go to the remote area so they will have lifelong experience which will change their future.
Just to interrupt for 1 second, if you don't mind, June. So, one of the things we did a number of analyses of this, including the Council of Student Advisors, who advised me, the president, and Jim was part of this, to understand issues around study abroad. And one of the things I think that we came to the conclusion was that for a cost point of view, even for some of our economically disadvantaged students, if they're paying for room and board on campus already, then the cost of studying abroad isn't really very different. In fact, might actually be slightly lower than staying at Stony Brook for a semester or for a summer. But what really was the barrier was the travel costs. The travel costs. So just small scholarships to provide travel costs, just $500, $600, something like that, may be enough to tip the balance so that somebody feels comfortable studying abroad. But people need to be educated about that. So I think June and his team are making really good progress, and the COSA advice I think was really helpful in helping us understand this problem. But we still could do even better. I think the other thing that's just really interesting is the trend is really now towards summer. So everybody wants to do study abroad in the summer. In the past, people might take a fall semester or a spring semester. And now people don't do that around the country. Almost everybody tends to go summer or maybe a brief winter program as well, if it's a nice part of the world to go to maybe. But that's, I think, changed in terms of how people look at it.
Does that work both ways? Do more kids want to come to Long Island during the summer?
Yes.
And
yes.
so
that's why the Global Summer Institute, I think, is working so well. And particularly for us, this pre-admitted student makes a huge difference. People who are considering going to Stony.
One of the most popular colleges that or countries our students go to for study abroad?
Still Europe. England, France, and Italy. But more and more students are interested in going to Asia and Africa now because we have
the Kenya and the Madagascar research sites. And also we
Florence,
have-
I think Florence is our probably
Yes,
most popular.
most
destination.
popular.
Yeah, we have a long-standing program with Florence.
More than 100 students go to Florence every year. So study abroad programs, we have our signature program called the 24 faculty-led program. That is, Stony Brook faculty will lead a group of students to have experiential learning on the site. So the students will, rather than taking classes inside the classroom, they are going to visit different sites and try to learn on site. So that is our signature program. We have more than 100 partner universities collaborate with us in carrying those programs. So new programs last year is England, Ireland, Bahamas, and the Honors College in Italy. One of our junior faculty, Jason Lewis, has been awarded the Stony Chancellor's Grant for Innovation Study Abroad program. Just and one of the students in biology, and he said that if there was one piece of advice I would offer to other students considering studying abroad, it would be to go out into the world, experience life, find some place that excites you. It is 100% worth it. So he received a diversity grant last year. And I'm happy to share with you that we have about 10 Gilman Scholarship recipients last year. This is record high for our university. And partnerships. So we have more than 230 partnerships around the world. As you can see, that lots of them are in Asia, 128, but in Europe as well, 70. Africa, Oceania, South America, and North America. So we are heavy in Asia and Europe. Our strategy is to help students go elsewhere. And as you can see that we have what is called a country-specific initiatives. We feel it is more robust and dynamic if we can focus particular countries. China is one of the examples. We not only established more than 140 partnerships in China, 61 partnerships in China, but also we have a students' mobility in both ways. And now we are also looking into India, Japan, and Korea, China. So in China, we also working with other universities trying to see if we can get more students coming after 3 years so that we can have steady pipeline. And training program from China, we started working with the provinces, government, and the corporations to establish training programs. So that kind of relationship will help us foster our partnerships and student mobility in the end. This is India. So we formed an Indian task force. All the faculty from India or have done research in India, they contribute to our strategies about India, and we try to identify opportunities and work with the local partnerships and try to do the same country-specific strategies to get students. And one of the university, Punjab University, which we visited and has a compatibility, so we are going to launch a study abroad program in India after sitting for a number of years. And Sunline 4 is a corporation educational company that also help us to look at what we need in India. Japan is another country that we work with a particular city called Yokohama, because the Yokohama is established an office in New York City, and they want to with the reputable universities. So I visited a number of universities in this region, and the mayor is going to be invited to campus to share with us what they do. We feel the government, corporation, the university nexus will eventually get us not only students, but also for students' future employment. So that kind of connection is very meaningful. In Korea, we have a number of universities. Besides SUNY Korea, we have a number of partner universities that always send students here, and we have a bilateral relationship with many of them. So, to wrap it up, as you can see that we not only focus on international student success, but also domestic students study abroad. And in this two-way interaction, we are going to rely on our faculty to reach out to partner universities, to look at the research collaboration, partnerships, but also student success. So looking into the future, and I think we try to, now we have received the Paul Simon Award, we really want to look at the meaning far beyond campus internationalization.
We want students to be successful upon their graduation in different regions of the world. Their future success will reflect on what we do. And so that's why we feel this will live up to far beyond, or maybe go further and faster. Thank you very much.
June, take a couple of questions. That was very informative, and right, it certainly just cements the fact that we're a global institution. Very exciting. Just in terms of the first chart you showed was tough to read. We have what, about 25,000 approximately total students here. How many are international students?
We have about 5,500 international students, and that is about 17% of the student population. And we try to not only increase, but also increase quality students. That is our goal.
And is the number one country that sends students here, is it China?
Yes. China, India, and Korea. That is across the nation. But because of last 2 years, that nationwide, we have faced about 17% decrease of international students overall.
And the 17% number, how does that rank with when we always measure ourselves against our peers, or whether it's at the other SUNY centers or say the other public universities like University of Michigan and stuff? Are they in that 20% realm as well?
Yes, across the nation there is a decrease.
No, but Kevin is asking, our percentage is 17% international students. How does that stack up with our AAU peers? What are their percentages across the board?
Okay, we are the number 5 in terms of international students in New York, following Cornell, Columbia, NYU, and Buffalo. So other universities, AAU universities, usually about 20 to 25, that is the norm. So we are slowly behind, but we are almost there.
Anybody else?
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Next up, very appropriate as the women's lacrosse team makes it to the NCAAs again, Sean Heilman.
Thank you, Kevin, and even more appropriate.
There they are.
There they are.
James Madison.
Thank you. Very proud to speak to all of you today. And as Kevin mentioned, our women's lacrosse team won its 7th straight America East Conference Championship on Saturday. We learned last night, once again, the selection committee did us no favors. We're going to play James Madison on Friday, and then should we advance to that, we'll play the number 1 seed Maryland on Sunday, just how we want it. But again, our women's lacrosse program, certainly the gold standard for success. But just very quickly, athletics is often viewed as separate from the academic mission of any university. But in reality, we're here to work collaboratively and truly shine the spotlight on what we are doing in research, what we are doing with our academic programs. This is why we're all here. Our student athletes are here to earn their degree and make a difference in the world. So our responsibility is to expand the brand. Certainly spark school spirit, and mainly what drives everything that we do is to positively transform the life of each student athlete. That is in our DNA. We really believe that by investing in each student athlete, lifting them up, that's going to give us a competitive advantage. Certainly recruiting talented athletes will do that as well, but sometimes it's not always the most talented that gives you the edge. It's the investment in those athletes that gives us that edge, and it's why we're winning. So just to give you a bit of a sense of what our North Star is, certainly it's our vision to positively transform the life of each athlete, but again, our mission is to elevate the profile, and you do that by winning. There's no question about it. If you look at the most prominent athletics programs, you think of Duke basketball, you think of Alabama football, Clemson football right now, that creates this energy and allows prospective students to say, I may want to go to that school because it provides a platform. And then the guiding principles that we utilize in our department, this is how we interact. This is what we do. Be positive, passionate, and present, accountable, accepting, and appreciative, innovative, introspective, and inspirational. So just a little bit about who we are. We have 500 student athletes. That's the most that we've ever had. Attribute that to the addition of our swimming program, the growth of our men's and women's track programs, and football has incrementally grown, but it's really track and swimming that have added to that number. Football is our largest team, tennis our smallest. We sponsor 18 sports. Very proud of the community service that our student athletes participate in. We're at 850 hours and counting as we approach the end of the school year. Winning games over Power 5 conference programs. Those are programs in the ACC, SEC, Big 10, Big 12, and Pac-12. Those are the teams that we want to beat. And we compare ourselves to the top AAUs in Michigan and Penn State, so we certainly want to beat those schools. And again, we do that by gaining an edge. We have no business beating them because they have more money than we do. They have a lot more to offer in terms of facilities, but we feel we have an edge. So we pride ourselves in beating those programs. We won 17 games over them in the last 2 years. Women's lacrosse has got a lot of those, but men's basketball, women's soccer, we've also made strides there and beaten Power 5 programs. And we won 6 regular season conference championships this year, and counting. Baseball right now is leading the America East, so the success has come. A little bit about our demographics. Again, hearing June talk about the international student population, we have a diverse student athlete population ourselves. We're very proud of the fact that 22% of our student athletes are black, and we've really tried to do more to create an atmosphere of inclusion and diversity. One of the things you'll see, we've created the Black Student Athlete Hub, which gives our black student athletes the opportunity to come together and discuss issues that are pertinent to them, but something we want to continue to see reflective in our staff as well. So we're in year 4 of our 5-year plan, Together We Transform, and it was built on this premise that together we can accomplish anything. And it was revolved around these transformational elements, as we called it. Number 1 was the student athlete experience. And again, we tried to measure certain points that then we could say, well, how are we doing 5 years from now? And when we started this in 2015, we put a lot of ambitious goals together. We're achieving a lot of them and have exceeded them in many cases, particularly around the student athlete experience, competitive success, and revenue generation. We're really on the path of doing something significant. And again, this was a plan really rooted in investing in our students. So history, we talk about making history all the time. And in athletics, we have a chance to do that every day, every time we take the field. This year was no exception. Our men's and women's basketball teams had phenomenal years. We were only one of 10 Division I programs out of 353 to have both our men's and women's programs win at least 23 games. It cost us our men's coach, Jeff Bowles, who left to go to Ohio, which is his alma mater, but very excited about Gino Ford, who was his top assistant, has been a head coach, and we will just continue our trajectory there. But men's basketball did some phenomenal things this year. Our first game of the year, we knew it was going to be interesting. We got down 22-0 to George Washington, came back to win, largest comeback in school history, and we defeated South Carolina for our first win ever against an SEC opponent. South Carolina went to the Final Four 3 years ago. Women's basketball got its first ever Power 5 victory over Penn State. Again, investing in those athletes, allowing them the opportunities to have success, and really promoting beating Power 5 teams. We have a board in our building where we post those wins, and we make a big deal out of it. This past fall was phenomenal. We talked, when I first got here, we had not won a fall championship since 2012. I got here in 2014. We really believe that if our fall teams have success, that's just going to give us momentum through the entire year. So we've seen that. First time in school history this year to win 3 fall regular season championships and have the football program go to the FCS playoffs. Volleyball, back-to-back America East titles, first ever perfect season in conference play. Won a school record 17 matches. Mentioned women's soccer. And women's lacrosse last year was #1 for the entire season. This year we lost the 2 of the best players in not just Stony Brook history, NCAA history, and still went 15-4 and a ranked number 17, and probably will have our best chance to win a championship. Who knows with the program that we have under Joe Spallina. Also a record, 7 of our football players were invited to NFL camps. Last year we had 6, which was a record. Again, the growth in football, and we believe, again, we put more players in the NFL, that's more conversation about Stony Brook University. Mentioned the fall sports. We won 1 in 2016, went to 4 NCAA tournaments in 17 and 2 in 18. So again, 6 in the past 2 years after having 0 from 2013 through 2015. The key, and I mentioned this before, is that exposure. And almost every day you can pick up Newsday and see our teams highlighted. You know, this is the regional exposure. We certainly want to get more national exposure. That's what we're aspiring towards. But this is the way we want to represent the university in a positive way, and continuing to find those opportunities to get that publicity. I mentioned having our student athletes have opportunities at the next level within the professional ranks. Dan Zamora here was a pitcher for us when I first got here. He pitched for the Mets yesterday, actually. He's one of the bright spots in their bullpen. Just an outstanding young man who's in his 2nd year with the Mets. Timon Paris became the 2nd ever Stony Brook football player to reach the NFL last year with the Redskins. And then lacrosse. On Long Island, lacrosse, we need to be very, very good. We expect regionally, this is important to us. What Joe Spallina has done with the women's program is phenomenal. He's now an assistant coach with the U.S. national team. And these are 2 of our players who are also part of the national team. Kylie O'Miller, who now serves as a volunteer coach, and Allie Kennedy, who is a junior on our team and is just one of the most amazing young women you'll meet. Rylan Reese played for the Canadian national team. Okay, outside of the exposure that we're trying to get nationally, it's really important that we give back to the community. And one of the programs of the many that I wanted to highlight as we talk about how we shine the spotlight on our university was the partnership that we had between our men's basketball program and the Children's Hospital, where our men's basketball players for a game against UMass Lowell wore jerseys with the name of a patient that had been treated at the Children's Hospital on the back. And then after the game, the children came in and received the jersey from our players. It was a very special night, and I think a great example of what kind of collaboration we can have here. And then the community. I mentioned the 850 community service hours that our student athletes perform. It has now become something that they want to do. We have student athletes ask, how can I get involved? Where before, it was always, okay, our team is doing this, I have to go. Our kids genuinely look forward to interacting with the community, and we've seen those connections bear tremendous fruit with having parents and families bring their children to our games. I mentioned life skills earlier. This is probably the most impactful program that we put into place since I got here in 2014. We didn't have a life skills department, but now it is probably our most utilized area within athletics. And I mentioned this is all part of the investment in our athletes that will allow them to have success in athletics and academics. Mentioned the Black Student Athlete Huddle, but mental health, certainly the biggest area that we've seen. And you can see all the areas that we help our student athletes achieve success, not just while they're here, but prepare for success in their lives. Just two athletes very quickly to highlight. Chris Infantino was one of our football players. He's now studying at the University of Kentucky. He wants to find a cure for ALS and autism. This is an amazing young man who is an example of the research mission and being a great football player for us. And then Ana Rodriguez from tennis. She has a 3.9. Received the Chancellor's Award for Student Athlete Excellence, or for Student Excellence. Quickly, I'll go through this as I know we're closing in on 10:30. Just part of this is promoting the academic mission. Had the highest number of student athletes ever in the fall with a 3.0. Very important to us. Trying to lift up all our student athletes and the success that they have. Highlighting the 3.0, 3.5, and the 4.0. Team GPAs, tennis, not surprisingly leading the way. But all of our teams, with the exception of football, is above a 3.0, and football has continued to creep up gradually. So we're very proud of that. Budget, we've talked a lot about this. The thing I guess I would highlight here is, again, the trying to heighten expectations while working through these budget challenges. We had $500,000 less in salary support through some attrition, but we never used that as an excuse. We said we're going to continue to have success. And our private contributions have gone up. That made up 2.5% of our revenue. It was 4.3% last year, and that will continue to rise, as will ticket revenue. Expenses, again, no surprise here, salaries, the largest chunk, as are scholarships. Revenue, you can see here, we've gone up in contributions, ticket sales. Our NCAA distributions actually went down. Those can fluctuate a little bit. But again, the things we can control, that's where we're seeing the uptick. Exciting progress on our Dubin Family Indoor Training Center, which is being constructed right now. This will be a phenomenal addition for our program and for the university, quite frankly. You can imagine in the Northeast, an indoor facility is important for our teams to practice and actually will be we believe, a good source for rental income for outside groups to come in and utilize this space.
Where is that being built, Sean?
That's being built just north of the stadium on the grass soccer field right now. So in between Joe Nathan Field and Laval Stadium.
And it's under construction now, or should
It's under construction now.
Oh, cool.
And then just where we're going, obviously our 5-year plan is, year 5 is next year, but everything we do revolves around the 3 R's, revenue, recruiting, and recognition. If it does not hit one of those areas, it's not important to us. I mentioned basketball and football success, the key nationally, lacrosse success regionally, and just continuing to push forward and have success. So we talk about doing everything together, so let's keep making history together. Thank you.
Very informative, Sean. Very exciting for all the sports, especially the women's teams. It's just fun to read and watch them. Any questions for Sean?
Great.
Keep it up. And who did you bring with her? Did you bring somebody with you today? No.
I did.
Oh, okay. Very good. All right. Last up, we have Adam Furtman, the Director of University Community Standards. We have some things we need to approve today that have been previously circulated. And Sean cut into a couple of your minutes, so...
I will speak extra fast.
Very good. No, very good.
Great. Thank you all for having me here today. I'm just presenting some of the highlights. You've all had an opportunity to review the proposed changes for the year. One of the main functions of the Office of University Community Standards is to oversee our Code of Student Responsibilities, which is our guiding document for students on our campus, as well as it provides sort of the procedural base for the functions of our office as well. Each year we assemble a committee of faculty, staff, and students to propose changes and review edits to the code for the coming year, ultimately leading to today for the council to approve these changes, if you have any questions, obviously. So to start, some of our proposed changes for this year that I wanted to highlight, we are proposing to remove all binary gender language from our code. This has actually come up from feedback from students that not all of our students fit into a binary gender category using he or she pronouns. So we're changing those to they or the student to be more inclusive for our whole campus community. We're clarifying the word days. I know that was funny to a lot of people when I brought that up to the committee. We use days in a couple of different ways throughout the code. We reference calendar days, we reference business days, and then sometimes we're super vague and just say days. So we want to make sure that we're being as clear as possible so our students understand what the expectations are. So we're making sure that everything is listed as either a calendar or a business day, and then we're adding a definition into the code so that students know exactly what that means for them. And then removal of some outdated terms and references throughout the code. We sort of scrub the code each year to make sure all of our links are appropriate. Anything that the university is not currently doing, we remove, or anything needed, we add in. Some of the more significant changes. We're proposing the addition of a hazing amnesty statement in the code. What this is going to be similar in nature to our Good Samaritan policy that allows us basically, the goal is to encourage students to report hazing activities on our campus or in clubs and organizations affiliated with the university. This statement will allow the university discretion in granting amnesty to students who bring these issues to our attention and participate through our student conduct process, through the investigation process as a witness. So we think this is a really great opportunity for us to reach out to communities that may have feared bringing these issues forward for fear of their own student conduct record. It allows the university some discretion in those cases. Additionally, so in our code, we have a few statements related to student groups and organizations. It was buried within a policy on disruption of university activities. So we've proposed to remove it from that section and make it its own standalone policy. And what this really covers is recognition of student organizations and unrecognized student groups and how those are defined on our campus as well. Academic integrity. While the code does not specifically dictate the academic integrity process, we do have references to the academic integrity processes here at the university. Some of you may remember last year, the proposal was to merge in the College of Engineering academic integrity process with the other undergraduate schools, which you all approved. We were in favor of it as well. Unfortunately, we found out after this went to print last year that the University Senate did not approve of that change. So we're reverting to basically the previous version of that section of the code, where the College of Engineering has their own separate academic integrity process. And then the final one that I wanted to highlight for you all is our mandated assessment and behavioral assessment committee. We've received a lot of feedback related to this over the years that it's confusing to students. What our mandated assessment and the behavioral assessment committee process is, when there's a concern related to a student on our campus, the student can be referred to the behavioral assessment committee and you have to go through a mandated assessment with a trained counselor. A lot of the confusion is that, well, how does that link to student conduct and how does that link to the Code of Student Responsibility? Am I in trouble if I'm going through the Behavioral Assessment Committee? So the proposal that we've made is to basically unlink that from the Code of Student Responsibility. It will be its own standalone policy and procedure under the auspices of Student Affairs. And what we will do is we will have a reference to it, much like we do with the academic integrity procedures, where they're not governed by the code, but they're referenced to in the code. And we think that will allow for some less confusion by our students. So those are the highlights that I wanted to share with you all. If you have any questions related to any of the other changes that we're proposing, I'm more than happy to field them. Yes?
Yeah, I have a question relating to one of the changes.
Sure.
The plural pronoun they is going to refer to a single human being?
It depends on how it's referenced. So yeah, I mean, we're going to be careful about how that's worded in the code.
He was a disclosure, an English teacher.
I remember he got the last year on one as well.
Yeah, no, but I also,
They and the student.
I had, yeah,
that'll
they
be a
are
student.
the student. The
Yes.
student is fine.
Yes, I think so. It's dependent on how the specific usage is used. Sometimes we use he or he/she, he or she. So I think we'll be very careful with how it's worded to make sure that it is appropriate.
I had nuns who made a big deal about a pronoun always agrees with its antecedent and number, and saying one person as they just reaches deep into the recesses of my educational background.
Thank you so much for that.
And he grammatically corrects my text.
James, if you want to give a final rule to the code before it goes to publication, I'm more than happy to have you do that.
Linda?
Is there a reason that we would hold two separate sets of students to a different standard with regards to the policy that you said the Senate voted down? And why wouldn't it be one policy for all students?
It's not necessarily a different standard, it's a different procedure. Again, so this was not a change that was proposed by my office. This was shared with us from the academic side of the house, that they wanted to merge the procedures. However, the University Senate ultimately did not approve it. So it's still going through the Senate committees to try and get it in that direction. We just wanted to make sure our code accurately reflected what the current state of affairs is.
So this happened before I became president of the University Senate.
So you're going to fix it?
I can't guarantee that because the College of Engineering faculty wants a say about their academic judiciary decisions. So you're basically merging. I mean, on the face of it, it doesn't make a lot of sense that it be inconsistent, but there's pushback because these kinds of things are an area of faculty concern. So it's got to be signed off by both the engineering faculty and the other faculty as well. So it's not as easy as it sounds. People can be very territorial.
It should be what's in the best interest of the student, and having a clear-cut policy that is fair for the student to understand, and that they don't need to read two separate policies if they're an engineering student versus a history student.
Absolutely, but if you are a faculty member in engineering, you think you have a sense of what's best for your students.
I get that.
So it's, you and I are on the same page here. I'm just trying to explain.
I get you, and I appreciate the explanation. I'm not trying to shoot the messenger.
Well, who's the final judge of that?
I know you guys have a time constraint, but I just.
needs to be.
Well, who's
a
the final judge of who
consensus.
gets to determine what the policy is? Is it the different schools or is it this board? Because if it's this board, then let's hear what she has
I
to
just
say
feel
and maybe
I
move
just
in
feel
that
having
direction.
an inconsistency for the students is not the way a university of our size and prestige should be dealing with.
So I think Marissa can take a look and is our excellent specialist in understanding the Byzantine complexes of precedent.
Very Byzantine.
Yes. So I think she can do that and we can maybe come up with an answer. But one of the things that's really important in shared governance is that there are areas around curriculum and other areas that really are the faculty's responsibility to put forward. So where this falls in that spectrum, I don't know. And it may be an interpretation as
Right.
opposed to something that's written. If it's an interpretation, then we can always, take a look and make other decisions. So I don't know the answer to this question. We will look into it and come back to the council with
We're
the answers on
trying,
that.
I'll say on behalf of the Senate, we are trying to get a policy that everyone can agree on as in the best
And again,
interest of the student.
we
So we're working
tread.
on
Nancy
we
has
tread
her
carefully
challenges.
with shared
Huh?
governance to
I
make
said
sure
you have
we're
your
not
challenges.
stepping over the line.
I know.
it. Territorial is just not an acceptable answer, right?
Yeah, well,
Right.
I can go back and say that to.
You should. I'd be happy to go on the
will.
record with it. I
Okay.
think I just did.
Smile for the camera.
Linda and Chris, good issues. Nancy, thanks for the clarification. I think Sam's answer though is probably the best, that we do operate under a shared governance format like all SUNYs, and we are not the only entity, the only board on this campus, and there are multiple boards, including the Senate. So thank you. But I'm also curious, Hustis or Jim, do you have any issues or concerns with these changes, or can we go ahead and approve these?
No issues or concerns.
No.
I'll take that in the form of a motion from Hustis, seconded by Linda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Is there any other business that anybody wishes to bring up? You do so at your own peril, since we're at 10:29. Sam and I have an appointment. Our next date is it determined in October? Do we have it?
And we're gonna go visit the Comac facility, right?
Oh, that'd be good. No.
I've only been asking for years.
We're not. This is Stony Brook University.
Michael likes the Southampton campus, Linda wants the Comac, and I think Stony Brook's right in the middle. Everybody have a terrific summer. We'll see some of you at graduation. Meeting is adjourned.